Hello, good day everyone. This is my ethics tech talk video about the ethical dilemma on plagiarism. For the content of this speech, I will be talking about ethical dilemma, plagiarism, ethical theories, the philosopher's side on the ethical dilemma that was presented, and my own stand. Here is my ethical dilemma. Mr. Rogers gave a task to a group of 6 students in his computer class to make a research paper about computer viruses and how it affects computer users. Eddie was assigned as the group leader. He is a kind-hearted person and is really interested in the research. On the other hand, his group mates really want to contribute ideas, but they have conflicting schedules. Time passes and Eddie is already worried because the content of the paper still lacks substantial information and the deadline is already at hand. Knowing the consequences of his actions and for the sake of his group, since it's already a day before the deadline, he decided to directly copy information from the internet and included it in their research paper. Mr. Rogers learned about the situation of the group the time the group submitted their work and noticed the copied information in the research. Mr. Rogers is to decide whether to penalize the group because of plagiarism or consider the group's situation. Okay, so let me first define what plagiarism is. According to the Merriam-Webster online dictionary, to plagiarize means to steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own. It is also to use another's production without editing the source. It is also to commit literary theft, to present as new and original an idea or product derived from an existing source. Okay. So, can words and ideas really be stolen? According to the US law, the expression of original ideas is considered intellectual property and is protected by copyright laws, just like original inventions. Almost all forms of expression fall under copyright protection as long as they are recorded in some way, such as a book or a computer file. So, therefore, the answer here is yes. So here are some actions where an act can be considered as plagiarism. So turning in someone else's work as your own is considered as plagiarism. Copying words or ideas from someone else without giving credit. Failing to put a quotation in quotation marks. Giving incorrect information about the source of a quotation. Changing words but copying the sentence structure of a source without giving credit, and copying so many words or ideas from a source that it makes up the majority of your work whether you give credit or not. So how do we avoid plagiarism? First is, according to my source, is we can paraphrase. Okay, so here you don't copy the text as is from your source. Make use of your own words to express your idea about a certain topic. Make use of citations, or you cite or include, or this is the inclusion of the author's name and the date of publication. Quoting, you quote exactly the way it appears from the source. Citing quotes, include page numbers and the paragraph number of your source. Citing your own material. So here, if some of the material that you are using was used previously as your, say for example, your presentation, cite yourself as the author of the material. So since according to the source or my reference, okay, without citing your previously used material is also considered as plagiarism. Referencing, include a reference page where you put all the sources you used. So without knowing, So where do we actually base our moral decisions, or how do we make moral decision, or the basis of our moral decisions? So based on my research, I have here the divine command. So some people base their moral decisions based on the divine command. So here we have a quotation, do what the sacred book tells you, or the will of God. So what is written, for example, in the Bible, or the Bible as the sacred book, okay? So it can be the basis of your moral decision. Number two is utilitarianism, making the world a better place. Virtue ethics, be a good person. The ethics of duty, do your duty. And then the ethics of natural and human rights. All people are created with certain unalienable rights. And lastly, the social contract ethics. Okay. So first, we have the consequence-based utilitarian theory. So here, an individual act X or a social policy Y is morally permissible if the consequences that result from X or Y produces the greater amount of good for the greater number of persons affected by the act or the policy. So we have here the philosophers under this theory. Hedonistic utilitarianism, which seeks to reduce suffering and increase pleasure or happiness. So the philosophers, or the Greek philosopher Epicurus, and the Irish philosopher Francis Hudson. In the ethical dilemma that was presented, if Mr. Rogers did consider the situation of his students in that case and decided not to penalize the group or lessen the penalty, then it may fall under utilitarianism, which seeks to reduce suffering and increase pleasure or happiness. Duty-based Kantianism, or deontological theory. Morality must ultimately be grounded in the concept of duty, or obligations that humans have to one another, and never in the consequences of human actions. Act always on the principle or rule that can be universally binding, without exception for all human beings. This is the principles of universality and impartiality. Every individual would be treated fairly since the same rules would apply universally to all persons. In the case of Eddie, where he have his duty to comply with the requirements of his teacher or wait for a favorable time in order for his classmates to participate, he weighed in between the two and decided to do the research by himself in order to comply with the requirement. Contract-based social contract theory. It is a moral system which comes into being by virtue of certain contractual agreements between individuals. The philosophers under this theory are Thomas Hobbes and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In the situation, or the ethical dilemma that was presented, if Mr. Rogers did give instructions, policies, and rules on how the research paper should be done, and the group of Eddie being aware of the rules, the act of plagiarism on the part of Eddie might have been prevented. He might really have organized his group to do the task at hand. Character-based virtue ethics ignores the special rules that consequences, duties, and social contracts play in moral systems. In the ethical dilemma, if Mr. Rogers did penalize the group for the reason that he wants to teach or impart to the group members that it is wrong to steal someone's work, then it would fall into this ethical theory, which seeks to develop individual character. That is virtue ethics. Okay, so my own stand in the ethical dilemma that was presented. So in that situation, given that the authority is on the teacher and the teacher as one to teach good character to his students, penalty with considerable fairness is just right in order for the students to learn from their mistakes. This is also to avoid repeated actions of plagiarism in the class. Perhaps I can say that learning about the ethical theories presented influenced my decision in a way that it aligns my own perspective of right or wrong into this ethical theories. In the end, it is up to the person, probably based on his beliefs, to decide whether to be in the right or the wrong side of the situation. So that would be all for the references of this Tech Talk video. So this is the listing of the sources or references. Thank you, and again, good day.